Imagine stepping into heaven for the very first time. The brilliance, the glory, the endless light. And then, suddenly, you see something that makes your knees buckle, your heart race, and your soul tremble. An angel, so terrifying, so overwhelming, that words can barely capture it. This isn't the soft, winged figure we often imagine in art. No. This is a being of such raw power and majesty that even the righteous quake in its presence. And here's the question that grips me. What did Enoch see? What did this ancient man of God encounter that left a story written across eternity? Stay with me, because this is not just about an angel. It's about the holiness of God, the reality of heaven, and the awe that consumes every soul who enters his presence. And by the end, you may never look at the word angel the same way again. But before we begin this journey into Enoch's vision, let me pause for just a second. If this is your first time here, welcome to Gospel Insights. Here we take the Bible and bring it alive, not just as history, but as a living, breathing story that can change your life. So if you want to keep exploring powerful truths like this, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you never miss out on messages that can strengthen your faith. Before we talk about the angel that shook Enoch to his very core, we need to pause and ask, who was Enoch? Why him? Why was he chosen to see what so few human eyes have ever witnessed? Enoch appears like a whisper in the book of Genesis, just a few short verses. Yet those few words carry an eternal weight. The Bible tells us, Enoch walked with God and then he was no more, because God took him. Think about that for a second. In a world drenched in sin, violence, and rebellion, here was one man who decided to walk with God. Not occasionally, not just on good days, but every single step of his life. And God looked at him and said, "You don't belong here anymore. Come closer. Come up higher." Can you imagine what it must have been like? To be living among people who mocked God, ignored his voice, chased idols, and yet to choose a different path. Enoch was surrounded by compromise, but he lived in communion. He didn't just believe in God, he walked with him. And because of that, God opened heaven to him. Now pause here with me. What would happen if God chose to open heaven to you? If suddenly the veil between the seen and the unseen was torn away, and you stood not in church, not in your room, but in the very courts of heaven itself? Would you be ready? Would you be terrified? Enoch didn't just get a glimpse, he was taken in. And what he saw there was beyond anything the human mind can easily bear. Thrones, rivers of fire, angels by the countless thousands, and then one being that made even this faithful servant tremble. But here's the point. Enoch wasn't chosen because he was famous. He wasn't chosen because he was loud. He was chosen because he walked with God in intimacy. And that's what makes this story matter for us today. Because the question is not, can we be Enoch? The question is, are we willing to walk with God in such closeness that we too could be entrusted with glimpses of his glory? So before we meet the most terrifying angel in heaven, remember this. It all began with one quiet man who refused to walk the path of the world and instead chose to walk hand in hand with his Creator. And because of that choice, he saw what no other man saw. Picture this with me. One moment, Enoch is walking the earth, feet on the soil, the sounds of life all around him. And then, in a breath, the veil lifts. Suddenly, he is swept into another realm. Not a dream, not a vision, but into heaven itself. Now pause here. Can you imagine how overwhelming that must have been? We've read descriptions in Scripture, but to actually see it, to feel the atmosphere of heaven pressing against your skin, to breathe air charged with glory, what would that do to you? Enoch tells us in the book of Enoch that the very first thing he saw was a place so vast and radiant, it could barely be described in human language. Towers of fire, thrones that blazed with brilliance, a light that didn't just shine but lived, a light that moved and spoke. Everywhere, angels, not a handful, not 100, but tens of thousands, radiant and powerful, filling the heavens like waves of fire and song. And here's what gripped me. These were not the gentle, smiling angels we see in paintings. These were beings that carried the weight of eternity in their presence. Some with faces of lightning, some with eyes like burning coals, some with wings so vast they stretched from one horizon to the next. Enoch stood there, just a man. No crown, no title, no army behind him. And yet, God allowed him to step into the courts of heaven and behold what no king or ruler of earth had ever seen. Think about it. If you were in his place, how would you respond? Would you fall to your knees? Would you try to hide your face? Or would you dare to lift your eyes at all? And yet, there's something important here. Even though the glory of heaven was overwhelming, Enoch wasn't destroyed. Why? Because he was clothed, not in his own righteousness, but in the favor of God. Heaven is a place where no sin can stand, but God brought him there because he walked in intimacy, clothed in divine grace. As he looked around, his heart must have been pounding. Every breath drawn in heaven must have felt heavier, fuller than anything he had ever known. He describes it as a place where mountains themselves burned with fire, where rivers flowed with flame, where everything seemed alive with holiness. But then, it happened. Among the countless angels, there was one that struck him with such fear, such trembling, that the memory never left him. Not just a figure of light, not just a servant of glory, but a being so terrifying that even Enoch, the man who walked with God, felt undone. And that's where our story turns. Because in the courts of heaven there are angels of beauty, angels of song, angels of worship, and then there are angels of judgment, angels who carry the full weight of God's holiness. And when Enoch saw one of them, his entire soul shook. Enoch had seen glory. He had seen light. He had seen the endless ranks of angels who minister before the throne. But then, out of all that splendor, his eyes fixed on a single being, and terror rushed over him like a flood. This angel was unlike the others, not clothed in gentle radiance, not singing with the choirs. No, this one carried the weight of judgment. Its form was towering, so vast Enoch could barely take it in. Its face shone like burning metal fresh from the furnace. Its eyes were flames of fire, piercing, consuming, impossible to escape. And its voice, oh, the voice. When it spoke, it wasn't like sound. It was like thunder that shook the bones, like waterfalls that roared in every direction, like the very earth splitting open. Enoch later said his whole body trembled when this angel spoke. Now pause with me. Have you ever been in the presence of someone so powerful, so commanding, that just their presence makes you shrink? Multiply that by infinity, and still it wouldn't compare to what Enoch felt in front of this angel. Tradition tells us this angel was none other than the angel of wrath, an angel assigned to carry out God's judgments against the wicked. Some writings call him by names like Uriel or Phanuel, depending on the role described. But whoever this being was, one thing was clear. He was not sent to comfort. He was sent to enforce the holiness of God. And that's why Enoch trembled, because this angel's very existence reminded him and reminds us that God is not only love, he is also holy, he is also just, and his holiness burns against sin like fire against dry wood. Enoch describes seeing rivers of fire flowing near this angel, like streams of judgment waiting to be poured out, and he says the angel's very garments were made of flames. Imagine that, an angel clothed not in cloth, but in fire. Can you picture standing there? Would you dare lift your eyes? Or would you collapse to the ground in fear? Here's the reflection. Most of us want angels who comfort us, angels who protect us, but heaven is full of angels with different tasks. Some sing, some guard, some announce, and some, like this one, execute the justice of God. And Enoch, chosen by grace, saw him face to face. And yet, here's the astonishing part, Enoch wasn't destroyed. Because even in the terror, God was showing him a truth, that his justice and his mercy are not enemies. They are two sides of his glory. The terrifying angel was proof that sin will not go unpunished, but also that the righteous will never face that wrath because God covers them. Enoch left that encounter marked forever. He had seen what few could imagine, the angel of judgment, terrifying beyond words, yet serving the holy purposes of God. And here's the question for us. When you think of God, do you only picture love, or do you also tremble before His holiness? Because until you've stood in awe of His holiness, you will never truly grasp the depth of His love. Why would God allow Enoch to see such a being? Why not just the choirs of heaven, the peaceful rivers, the songs of praise? Why show him something so terrifying that even a righteous man trembled? The answer is this: because God wanted Enoch, and through him, us, to understand the full picture of His nature. We love to talk about God's love, and we should. His love is beyond measure. But if all we see is love, without holiness, then we don't really know Him at all. Think about it. Would God's love mean anything if sin didn't matter? Would His mercy matter if there was no judgment? The terrifying angel that Enoch saw was a living reminder that God is not mocked. Every evil deed, every rebellion, every act of violence that goes unpunished on earth, it will one day be answered before heaven's court, and this angel was heaven's enforcer of that justice. Now pause here. How often do we live our lives forgetting that? How often do we treat sin lightly as if it's just a mistake, just a slip, nothing serious? But to God, sin is death. Sin is rebellion against His very throne. And when Enoch stood before that angel, he saw with his own eyes what God thinks about sin. And yet, don't miss this, Enoch also walked away alive. Why? Because judgment wasn't meant for him. Judgment wasn't meant for the faithful. It was meant for the wicked. And that truth points us directly to Christ. Because one day every one of us will stand before God's throne. And when that terrifying angel appears, the question will be this: are you standing under judgment, or are you standing under mercy? That's the weight of this story. It's not just about a terrifying angel. It's about the holiness of God and the urgent reminder that without His covering, none of us could stand. But with Christ, oh, with Christ, we can stand in heaven itself, just like Enoch, and not be destroyed. Because the wrath we deserve has already been poured out on Him at the cross. And here's the reflection. The terror of that angel isn't meant to drive us away from God. It's meant to drive us into His arms, to remind us that this isn't a game, that eternity is real, that holiness matters, that sin is deadly, but also that God's love has already made a way. So ask yourself, if Enoch trembled before the angel of judgment, how seriously should we take our walk with God today? Are we walking casually, or are we walking with Him, like Enoch, every step, every day, every choice? Because when you walk with God, you will see His holiness, yes. You will tremble, yes. But you will also know His love in a way that makes you unshakable. Picture it again. Enoch standing there trembling, looking upon the angel whose very presence radiated judgment, holiness, and fear. He didn't run. He didn't deny what he saw. He stood weak but faithful in the presence of God's truth. And here is the eternal lesson. Sometimes God allows us to see things that terrify us, not to destroy us, but to awaken us. That's what He did for Enoch. That's what He does for us. The terrifying angel wasn't the end of Enoch's vision. It was a chapter in it. Because Enoch would later see paradise, he would see the throne, he would see God's glory. But God made sure that before he saw the beauty of heaven, he first understood the weight of judgment. Why? Because the gospel isn't good news unless we understand the bad news first. Mercy only shines bright when we realize what we've been saved from. Think about it. Enoch walked with God and was taken without seeing death. Why? Because he lived every day in reverence, with a holy fear that shaped his choices. That's what kept him close. That's what kept him faithful. So what about you? Are you living with that awareness? Do you live each day knowing that holiness is not optional, that eternity is not a far-off idea, but a reality we are walking toward with every heartbeat. The terrifying angel Enoch saw stands as a reminder to us. God is love, yes, but God is also holy, righteous, and just. You cannot separate those things, and you don't need to, because in Jesus Christ, they come together perfectly. At the cross, God's love and God's justice met. His wrath against sin was satisfied, and his love for you was displayed in full. So, here's the eternal lesson. When you hear stories like Enoch's, don't just let them pass by as myths or curiosities. Let them stir you. Let them wake you up. Let them remind you that the God you serve is not small, not tame, not casual. He is the Almighty, and He calls you to walk with Him daily, faithfully, with reverence and love. Because one day, you too will stand before His throne. And when you do, the question won't be how good you were or how famous you became. The question will be, did you walk with Him? Did you trust His Son? Did you let His holiness shape your life? Enoch's vision gives us the answer we need. Walk with God now, so that when eternity comes, you won't be terrified, you'll be welcomed home. When we hear Enoch's story, it can feel distant. A man from thousands of years ago taken to heaven seeing angels we can barely imagine. It almost feels too far removed from our everyday struggles. But here's the truth. The same God who revealed terrifying visions to Enoch is the same God who watches over you right now. The same God who held Enoch close holds you close. The same God who called Enoch to walk with Him calls you to walk with Him. And here's the beauty. You don't need to see visions of angels to know His power. You don't need to be carried into the heavens to experience His presence. You have His Word. You have His Spirit. You have the invitation every single day to walk with Him in the ordinary, the unseen, the unnoticed. Maybe your walk with God isn't dramatic. Maybe it's just small prayers whispered before bed. Maybe it's choosing kindness when anger would be easier. Maybe it's staying faithful when no one else sees. But let me remind you, heaven notices, just like heaven noticed Enoch. The terrifying angel was part of Enoch's story, but the heart of his story is simple. He walked with God, and in the end, that was enough. So what about you? Are you walking with Him today? Not just believing in Him, not just acknowledging Him, but walking with Him, step by step, choice by choice, day by day. Because that's where the strength comes from. That's where peace is found. That's how you prepare for eternity. Maybe you'll never see what Enoch saw. Maybe you'll never encounter an angel so fearsome it shakes you to your core. But you can still live the kind of life that, when the end comes, God looks at you and says, "You walked with me. Now come home." That's the invitation. That's the challenge. That's the hope. So today, don't just marvel at Enoch's vision. Don't just fear the angel he saw. Take the lesson to heart. Walk with God, because the greatest testimony you can ever leave behind is not what you achieved, not what you built, but that you walked with Him faithfully until the very end. When Enoch saw that angel in heaven, it must have shaken him to his core. We've talked about the blazing eyes, the fiery face, the voice like crashing waters, the presence that could paralyze a human heart with just a glance. And let's be honest, if you or I saw something like that, we might collapse in fear. But here's the question. Why would God show Enoch something so terrifying? Why not only show him peace, beauty, and joy? Because God was painting a complete picture. Heaven is not just harps and clouds. It is a kingdom of order, of majesty, of justice, of power. The angel Enoch saw wasn't meant to drive him away from God. It was meant to remind him, and us, of the seriousness of God's holiness. Think about it. We live in a world that often shrinks God down. People want a soft God who only comforts, never corrects. A God who blesses, but never disciplines. But the terrifying angel Enoch saw shatters that illusion. He reminds us that God is not to be trifled with. His kingdom is real, His judgment is real, His holiness is consuming. And yet, and here's the paradox, this same God who commands terrifying angels also invites you into His presence as a child. The one who holds galaxies in His hands also holds your tears. The one who governs the armies of heaven also whispers peace over your life. Let that sink in for a moment. This is why Enoch's vision matters for us today. It's not just a story from ancient texts. It's a call to wake up, to realize that following God is not casual. It's not a hobby. It's not a weekend ritual. It is life and death. It is eternal destiny. Now let me ask you, if you stood before that angel right now, if its fiery gaze pierced through your soul, would you be ready? Would you stand with confidence, knowing that your life is hidden in Christ? Or would you tremble in fear, unsure of where you stand with God? That's not just a dramatic question. It's the most important one you'll ever answer. Because one day, every single one of us will face the reality of eternity. And when that day comes, no excuses will matter. No masks will matter. No achievements will matter. Only one thing will matter. Did you walk with God? That's why Enoch's story is more than history. It's a mirror, a warning, a promise. Let's go back to that terrifying angel one last time. Enoch saw what few humans ever could. But notice, he didn't turn away. He didn't run. He didn't deny what he saw. He stood in awe. And then he kept walking with God. That's the lesson for us. Don't let fear drive you from God. Let it drive you deeper into Him. Don't let the weight of holiness crush you. Let it push you to the cross, where Christ bore the full weight of judgment so you wouldn't have to. Because here's the gospel truth. In Christ, we have nothing to fear. Even the most terrifying angel, even the fiercest throne room, even the day of judgment itself cannot shake the one whose name is written in the Lamb's book of life. So yes, Enoch saw terror. But behind the terror was glory. Behind the fire was love. Behind the angel's fearsome presence was the eternal reminder that God is bigger, stronger, and more powerful than anything in heaven or on earth. And that's good news for you. Because it means your battles are not bigger than your God. Your fears are not greater than His power. Your sin is not stronger than His mercy. So here's my challenge as we close. Don't waste your life. Don't walk casually when you've been invited to walk closely. Don't wait until it's too late to take God seriously. Walk with Him now. Trust Him now. Surrender now. Because one day, like Enoch, you will see things beyond imagination. And on that day may you stand, not in terror but in triumph, because you chose to walk with the God who walks with you. So as we close, remember this. Enoch's story isn't just history. It's prophecy. It's a window into what awaits all of us. And though the angel he saw was terrifying, the truth behind it is full of hope. Because the same God who revealed that vision is the God who loves you, who sent His Son for you, and who promises to walk with you every step of the way if you'll let Him. So ask yourself today, are you walking with God? Are you ready for eternity? Are you letting His holiness and His love transform the way you live right now? Don't push it off. Don't wait until tomorrow. The same God who walked with Enoch wants to walk with you today. And when He does, you'll find that even the most terrifying vision is nothing compared to the joy of knowing Him. Thank you for staying with us through this powerful story. If you were blessed by it, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon so you never miss another video. This is Gospel Insights, and we're honored to walk this journey of faith with you. Until next time, keep walking with God, because heaven is closer than you think.